Good afternoon and welcome to the March instance of Lunch with Haley. I'm Brad Biley, our Director of Digital Marketing, joined today by Haley Berkner, Susan Wurst. We have an incredible lineup of some staffing owners and CEOs and one CIO with us this afternoon, where you're going to get to hear firsthand how to expand your reach through advanced cross-selling and upselling strategies specifically for your staffing firm. But hey, before we get started, while everyone is still clicking in, what I'd love for you to do is get comfortable with that chat window. So if you've seen me talk before, you know we're going to do this. We do it every single time because we want to welcome questions, and I want you to be comfortable with where that chat window is. So right now, I'm dialing in from Buffalo, New York, the greatest city in the world with the greatest football team in the world. I would love for you to find that chat window and let us know where you are joining today's Lunch with Haley from. So feel free to grab that chat window on Zoom. Right now, for me, it's in that lower ribbon. But just let us know where you're dialing in from so that we can put a little bit of location to the name. We got William joining us from Dallas, Judd from Minneapolis, Carrie. Great to see you, Carrie. I hope all is well from Fort Myers, Florida. Sunny Fort Myers, I would assume. Paige from Atlanta, Deborah from Thousand Oaks. We got a lot of people. Coats are better than the Bills. Brandon. All right, Brandon, we'll let you stay this time. We got Amy joining from Cumming, Georgia. Really good chatter going on here. All right, let's ask one more question then before we get started. And I do want to get started pretty much on time here. When you think about expanding your reach, cross-selling and upselling for your specific staffing firm, what's been working for you? You're going to hear from us in a little bit. And I can tell you from about 200 calls in the last quarter or so, the general vibe across the industry is selling is incredibly difficult. Generating new orders is incredibly difficult. So I would love to know what's working for you. How are you closing new orders? What are you doing to drive new business? Again, feel free to use that chat window. Judy, welcome from San Jose. Great to have you here. West Coast time, huh? The home of football. Oh, Todd. Welcome, Todd. Good to see you here, bud. Thanks for joining us. A couple people from Detroit. We got a ton of people on here today. I like this. All right. So while you feel free to use that, Aaron, good to see you. Welcome. I'm going to close out this window here. I'm going to close out the chat window. Again, feel free to let us know how you're driving orders, right? What's working for you? I'm going to close out the chat window because unfortunately I can't see anything else with it loaded, but feel free to use that chat window. Let us know what's working for you. And we are going to get started with today's Lunch with Haley. I already introduced myself. My name is Brad Biley. I'm our Director of Digital Marketing. Susan, why don't you go ahead and let everyone know who you are and what it is that you do here at Haley Marketing?
Thanks, Brad. Hi, my name is, as Brad said, is Susan Wurst. I'm the Director of Account Management here at Haley Marketing. I oversee our, in short, our account management function, make sure we have happy customers. And I've been in the staffing industry a little over 30 years on both sides. I've worked a desk, I've worked in staffing, and also as an industry supplier. And I am extremely excited for this webinar because I think it really is a great subject, and I am very excited for the knowledge of our panelists and looking to learn something today.
I am too. We got a great lineup. We got a great group of people joining us today. When we sat down and started planning out this episode of Lunch with Haley, we said, hey, we can share some of our ideas and what we're seeing at Haley, but why not bring people who are on the front lines to share what's working for them? Haley, who are you and what do you do at Haley Marketing? Let everyone know.
Howdy, I saw a large presence of Dallas, Texas and Texas presence in the chat, so that's great to see. I'm Haley Berkner and I'm an account manager here at Haley Marketing. And my background is from Sense previously, so still in the staffing and recruiting world, but love to chat anything about automation and excited to brainstorm here with Brad and Susan today.
So you're going to hear from Susan and Haley throughout today's Lunch with Haley presentation. I'm going to do my best to guide us there, get the ship going in the right direction, but really, you're going to hear from 5 incredible panelists who are going to tell you everything they know about cross-selling and upselling. Real quick housekeeping, please use the chat window should you have questions throughout today's Lunch with Haley presentation. We just went through a great exercise where we found the chat window. So now that we all know where it is, make sure you use it. If we're talking about ideas that you've deployed and you've used, great. Let us know if they're working for you. If they're not working for you, let's talk about that too. Susan and Haley are both going to monitor that chat window. So if anything pops up once we get through a section, We'll break it down and we'll elevate any questions that we might have from that previous section. So don't feel like you need to wait until the very end. Something's on your mind, let's talk about it. Before we get going and before we bring in our panelists and we start talking about how to cross-sell and upsell, I want to sort of give you a state of the industry. And this is really lessons from about 200 calls that our team has been a part of over here at Haley Marketing. The first, we can find talent. Even at 3.9% unemployment, when we look at the majority of the industry, and I can think of probably 3 to 4 clients offhand who are struggling to find candidates, the real challenge is finding clients. We can find talent. Again, even at 3.9% unemployment, we're doing everything we can to recruit, find great talent, and find those individuals for the open orders we have. The challenge, selling is harder than ever, right? Competition is fierce, and election years, well, they typically bring hesitancy. I had a call with a client about a month ago who said, Brad, honestly, being in oil and gas in Texas, we're kind of just going to ride this out until 2025. An election year is very, very challenging for that vertical in that space specifically. Selling is harder than ever. And it's not just because of the election year. We're consistently beating each other up over price. We're fighting from competition standpoint against, a couple of you who are on today's call, your direct competitors, right? You're going against each other for those orders. But we're also going against HR. We're going against internal hiring. We're going against companies who say, listen, I don't need you because I can do this myself. And that competition is fierce and it is harder than ever to sell. I've heard that on more than enough calls. And that's why we're bringing you today's conversation to think about ways that we can get around that. Some businesses are down over 70%. I've heard on average, the industry is around 20 to 30%. I know that number might fluctuate a little bit based on your specific vertical and really who you're talking to and where that data comes from. But I've been a part of some calls that are downright tough to be a part of. Hearing companies are down 70%, I'll be honest, it stings and it hurts to be a part of those calls because you feel for people who are on the other end of those conversations, right? Now, that's not all. Some are down 20%, some are up, but those calls do hurt. The best staffing firms, the best recruitment agencies, they operate differently. And when we look at calls with roughly 200 different companies in the last quarter or so, most of which, I've had the opportunity to be a part of, there's a common trend, and it's that the best organizations operate differently. They obsess over the candidate and the client experience. They do everything they can to rethink where they're going to be this time next year and understand that, listen, just because we did it this way in the past doesn't mean this is the way we need to do it in the future. They challenge the status quo. They challenge what's working. And most importantly, they look to make the experience better for the candidate and the client. Friends, if you're not obsessing over the candidate and the client experience, I want to encourage you to do so. And throughout this presentation, we're going to give you a couple challenges and ways to get started, but we need to think about that experience. We need to reduce friction at every step of the process. And we're starting to evolve. Haley mentioned she has a sense background, and I am hearing more frequently the automation buzzword throughout the industry. And it seems like there are more and more agencies and organizations who are beginning to evolve and embrace things like AI, automation, IP tracking, improving their tech stack and using their tech stack as a differentiator to make sure that they're using their tech to their advantage when it comes to sourcing, when it comes to making placements, and when it comes to finding those orders. We are starting to evolve as an industry. I must admit, I've been here at Haley now for what's going to be 11 years very, very soon. And as a stereotype, the industry is a little outdated. And I don't think that's any surprise to anybody on today's call. Heck, I was in Boston last week speaking at the Massachusetts Staffing Association's annual conference. And after the conversation, somebody said, Brad, all this stuff's nice, but we're still printing everything in our office and filing it. And once I caught my breath, I said, well, one, I don't know why you're doing that. And two, you are single-handedly taking down the paper industry, or at least keeping the paper industry going, right? But we're starting to evolve and we're starting to see things differently, and we're starting to use technology to our advantage. So friends, today, wanted to set the stage for you, but now that we have more than enough time to talk about it, I want to talk about expanding your reach. And we want to talk about how to use cross-selling and upselling strategies specifically for your staffing firm to drive new business in 2024. And when we think about driving business in this year, we can go out and we can get it from new leads, or we can go back to the clients that already know us, that already love us, and do more with them. And for sake of this conversation, that's really where we're going to be looking. If you want to look about or think about driving new leads, there are other Lunch with Haley's that talk about that. But for this conversation, we're going to talk about how to cross sell and upsell specifically with the current clients you already have. So first, when we get started, I want to give you a lesson from Tom Erb. Tom is not on today's call. What we're going to do is we're going to give you essentially 6 lessons throughout today's conversation, throughout today's Lunch with Haley. We're going to give you 3 from our newest podcast vertical, Take the Stage. And then we're going to give you 3 live from individuals who are joining us on today's call. The first comes from Tom on his episode of Take the Stage, where his idea and his methodology was to really rate the relationships that you have with each decision maker in the organization that you're working with. So most of us on today's call will rate or rank our job orders. That order is an A. That's a great order. We can fill that. We're good at filling those type of orders. We can find welders. Then you go down the other way. That order is an F. We've never really placed nurses. We'll take it. That order is an F. Most organizations are going to rate the order that they have or rate the overall client that they work with. Tom's suggestion on this episode of Take the Stage was to rate the relationship that you have with the decision maker at that organization or the decision maker that you want to be working with. So when we think about cross-selling, it's understanding the relationship you might have with Haley, who is in a different department, Susan, who is in a different department, and then rating those relationships. And Tom's rating system is as follows. E, that's a necessary evil. That's someone who uses staffing because they think you are a necessary evil and they need to work with you because they have no other options. D, that's a vendor. You are a staffing partner and a staffing vendor. They probably have other vendors on their roster. You have a D relationship. A C, well, that's a key vendor. You've jumped the list, right? There are others that work with this client, but you are a key vendor. B, that's when you become a business partner. And A, ultimately, you become a trusted advisor. Friends, on today's call, I would encourage you to rate your relationships with decision makers in the organizations that you're working with. And all we need to do, let's get one step further with each relationship and each individual in the upcoming quarter. So sit down, write out, start with 20 clients, 20 individuals, 20 relationships that you have, right? And then let's be honest with ourselves, rate that relationship, and then think about, okay, how do I get this individual to go from a necessary evil, an E, I just want to be a vendor. I want to be seen as a vendor to them. Or instead of being a vendor to them, I want to be their key vendor. What do I need to do? And challenge yourself to take each of those just one step further. Haley, Susan, anything that you have seen from the account management side of operations in terms of rating relationships or any sort of impact or implications that you've seen from organizations who may have done this?
I'm sorry, I'm losing my voice today. I love the idea of the rating and really being, honest with yourself. And one thing that I like that you said, Brad, was to think about not just the client in general, but each of your contacts there, the different departments. And I'm sure we're going to be talking a little bit later during some of these conversations regarding expanding your reach and, why it's important to have multiple relationships. I have not personally talked to anyone who has done this rating system, but absolutely love the concept of it.
Haley, talk to us.
I was just going to say that Haley Marketing brought me on to be someone that proactively reaches out to our clients, someone that doesn't have those ongoing services with Haley Marketing. So I've been really using my time to, spread the feelers to let everybody know I'm here and I'm ready to brainstorm on different ways that Haley Marketing might be able to help. And with that, you get to talk to lots of different people, whether that be, decision maker all the way down to recruiter and helping them get what they need to get done in their day.
Yeah, and Amy had a great note in the chat window here. It said the key to this rating system is you have to be brutally honest. We've been doing it for years now, and it really allows you to focus on improving relationships. But you're exactly right, Amy. You need to be brutally honest. And if you don't have an A relationship, if you are not an A trusted advisor, you need to be aware of that. And if you are a necessary evil, and honestly, on today's call, a lot of us probably are. And that's okay to admit. But how do we go from being that necessary evil to being a vendor, to being a key vendor? We need to make sure that we have that brutally honest observation And then we need to make sure that we're doing everything we can to strengthen that relationship. As Susan alluded to, we can rate the overall client and the overall company that we're working with, but what happens if our decision maker and the contact that we're working with leaves? Is that relationship still viable? Or do we go deeper with other individuals? So great points. Again, lesson from Take the Stage and specifically Tom Erb. At this time, we're going to welcome on Adrian Dominguez, CEO of Rolling Staffing and self-proclaimed Dallas Cowboys fan. Adrian, go ahead, unmute yourself, bring yourself on camera here, and we'll get this talking, buddy.
All right, we'll see you later, Brad.
All righty.
I love the introduction. I am a self-proclaimed recovering Dallas Cowboys fan.
Of course.
And I think before this started, I just want to point out that Brad said every team that he roots for is in rebuild stage, and that would include the Buffalo Bills. But anyways, we're going to move on from that. Good to be on. Glad to be with you all today.
Great to have you. I mean, they got rid of the whole defensive side of the ball the other day. So that's a conversation for another day, my friend. But
Yes, sir.
It's always great to see you. Always appreciate you bringing on your expertise and your insights with us here. Adrian, when we think about upselling and we think about cross-selling, as CEO of Rolling, I'm sure you've seen it all. What I want to talk to you specifically about, though, is the strengthening of personal brands that you've really been a huge advocate for at Rolling. Adrian, I'm going to ask you kind of bluntly here.
Yeah.
Why do you empower your team to be as outspoken as they are on sites like LinkedIn? Why do you get into that sort of practice?
Yeah. Well, I'll just say this. I think for a lot of, I'm going to answer that in a roundabout way, but I'll get to it though, I promise. I think one of the challenges that owners and executives and people in leadership have when it comes to this subject is, well, if I empower my people to do that and they're getting out there, then they could potentially just walk away and leave. And if that's kind of where your mindset is at, let me help you out a little bit. And I don't mean this to sound facetious as I say it, but the truth is they could already walk away. There's nothing holding them. They're employees. And, if they find something that they believe is greener grass somewhere, they could do that. But I think there's so much more that we risk not gaining versus being worried about what we might lose. And what I mean by that is there's the ability with the technology that we have today for our employees to come through and shine. And I think about all the apps that we have today, and I'm not against them all, but you've got dating apps and you got every app that you could think of, entertainment. The more technology that we have, I think the more people crave relationship. If you think about it this way, Brad,
Yes.
The garage door opens, people pull out, they drive to an office, they pull back out of their office, they drive home, garage door opens, they go in there. People are connected, but also disconnected. And so they crave to connect with people. And I believe it's really important to provide people with the opportunity to get to know us. I've heard you talk about it a million times, Brad. What is it that makes us stand out? Well, we care. We have better recruiters. A lot of things that people say with the best of intentions, but what does it actually mean to a client or a prospective client? If they can see the personality, if they can see a little bit behind the scenes, if they can see a little bit more about what it takes to do what we do, they feel more connected to us. And they're much more willing to partner with us. I think that's what you're risking not gaining when you don't give your people the keys and say, okay, it's your turn to drive.
Yeah, and you've always been pretty outspoken on LinkedIn. I know you're a great follow and you've become a good friend of mine, and we talk about it quite a bit. Being able to show that personal brand, at the end of the day, your sales team is working with clients. They're working with a contact at a client organization, right? Yes, they're working with Roll Inc., but at the end of the day, they're working with Brad, right? They're working with an individual. And to your point, the more that they can get to know that individual, the more irreplaceable that person becomes, thereby making Roll Inc. more irreplaceable, right?
Correct. 100%. It's one and the same. And I think, I'll be honest with you, when I think of Haley marketing, I think of Brad Biley, and that's relationship building, right?
Yeah.
And the more that you dig deep into what it is that we do, we're about we're in the people business, and we're all about people. And sometimes it's so funny because you're so into the mechanics of what you're doing, you forget the way to bring more people into this is by being people. And so I think it's crucial to give them the opportunity to be able to do that. If I could use one example,
Please.
we've got a young lady on our team named Jessica. I love Jessica Rainey. She's a sweetheart, an amazing recruiter. Came into our company not with industry experience. She was in meteorology. She
Wow.
was like early morning doing weather reports, I think for a station in Nebraska. Don't quote me on that.
Okay.
But she was, I mean, in front of the camera, audiences seeing everything she's doing all the time. And so one day we're talking about this. I'm like, man, it'd be great if you did something with this. You would be awesome. And she was like, I don't know. I'm like, no, you really need to give it a try. She's doing it now. She's doing it consistently. And I think one of my highlights of my week, like I'm kind of like excited myself every week just to
Yeah.
wait and see like, what is she gonna do this week? And I think I've had clients reach out and say, hey, this is awesome. We
Yeah.
love Jessica. And that's like my dream. I want our clients to fall in love with our people.
Yeah, and what's funny there is I know from just being in the industry now for close to 11 years, no one ever wakes up and says like, "Hey, I want to be in staffing or I want to be a recruiter," right? We all kind of fall into this, and to hear that she was a
Correct.
meteorologist that is now into staffing, I mean, that just absolutely solidifies what I just said.
Yeah.
Adrian, I think you make a good point in terms of working with an individual, growing that personal brand, strengthening that personal brand. I know your team is also super present in the local area, right? And I know
Yeah.
specifically, I see Alexis quite a bit going
Yeah.
to different career fairs and getting to know clients and going out and meeting with clients. And I know that because she posts on LinkedIn all the time about it and showcases it.
Yeah.
Walk us through that. How does that strengthen relationships? And then how does that open more doors for a
Right.
team like Rolling?
Yeah. So I'll say a couple things about that. One is I gave her a challenge this year as far as new client gains for quarter 1, and she's
Yeah.
smashing it. And the reason she's smashing is because she's out there and she's meeting with. We're not. Here's the thing I think that gets lost in all this. Like it's not just I need to sell. I need new clients. And if that's the way you jump into this, like you're going to repel more people than you gain. We have to speak to what it is that people need and what it
Mhm.
is that they want. And if people can hear language from us that speaks to their needs without pressure, business will come. And so she's out there doing that. She's not going, I got to gain these clients. I want to connect with people.
Yeah.
There are times where she is meeting with people who are never going to be a client, and we're still giving them information that can be a value add to them. But going out and being consistent in the community, what I think the challenge for leaders in staffing companies is we've got these goals, we've got these metrics, we got to be doing this, we got to be doing this, and we forget like ultimately, if I can invest some time post-COVID where people are craving face to face, like I
Yeah.
want to connect with you. Um, if I can invest some time with my people, some of my best people, getting out away from what we would call the busy work, the work that needs to be done, if they can get out and build relationships, and that's exactly what they're doing. They're doing it on a consistent basis. Community colleges, the counties, workforce centers, getting out there and
Yeah.
investing the time. It is absolutely paying off. And furthermore, there are candidates that we're able to connect with that we would never connect with any other way. And I won't go into the whole story, but we actually
Sure.
gained an internal employee out of one of these recent events, and we weren't really going there with that even in mind. It was more about, hey, we're here to represent our industry. That's one thing. Number two, we want to help you. We want to make sure you're getting what you came here for. What did you come here for? I'm looking for a job. I'm desperate. I've lost my identity. I'm trying to figure out who I am. Again, you get all these stories.
Yeah.
And by doing that, taking that in, it opens up so many more doors. It really does. You just got to invest the time out there.
Yeah, and just one maybe last point here, Adrian. I think humanizing what we do and continuing to humanize staffing is what makes us so special, right? In a world where there is AI and automation and all of these tech advancements that make our jobs easier, more efficient, better, faster, stronger. I'm going to talk about AI in a little bit within this talk here. We're going to talk about AI in a little bit. Going out face to face and saying, "Listen, I'm real. Here's who I am. Here's what
Yeah.
I like." You know, I introduced you as a diehard Cowboys fan, right? Having that personal relationship is why we're good friends now, right? Yes, we genuinely like talking business and talking marketing and staffing, yes, but there's more to that, and there's a relationship because of that. And I think as you start to do that, and as you empower your team to do that, that's when the account management function sort of takes over, and you close more orders as a direct result.
Absolutely. And I would say, kind of closing thoughts on this for
Sure.
me anyways, is like, I don't think that there's one thing. Like if you go, okay, it's all about personal branding, or it's all about it,
Right.
you know what it is? It's all about everything, because we're all trying to reach different people. And the reality is some of the people are going to respond better through digital means on LinkedIn. Some of the folks are going to respond better through in-person events. We don't know that. That's what we don't know. And that's why you got to cast that net and go, look, we're going to invest in a diverse portfolio of relational activity that involves connecting with people. And I think if you're willing to do that over time, the compound effect, I think you see that you don't just build your business. I feel like when we say that, we're missing it. You're building your business, yes, but how are you doing it? You're doing it by making a difference in people's actual lives. And that's what matters.
Adrian, I can't thank you enough for coming on this episode of Lunch with Haley. Before I let you go, buddy, I want to give you the floor real quick to talk about Roll Inc. and also talk about the Colorado Staffing Association. So take a minute or two here, and I want to make sure that you have that platform to do so.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I'll start with CSA, the Colorado Staffing Association, a local state chapter of the American Staffing Association. And I just want to give a shout out to the board for CSA, Karen Boer of J. Kent Staffing, Leona Wildner from Front Range, and Trish Bowen-Bannister from Snelling of Northern Colorado. Those ladies are phenomenal. The work that they have put in over the last few years is unbelievable. Leona's our president, do a lot in the last few years focusing on legislative, because it's a big deal in Colorado and other surrounding states. A lot of changes legislatively affecting business. Also, just the opportunity to connect, to collaborate. There are so many benefits that come from being willing to let your guard down, admit you don't know everything,
Yeah.
and mingle with some other people who've been doing this for a long time. And we also started a future leaders group out of CSA. So we're kind of preparing the next generation to come to get involved as well, to show them, hey, there's a place at the table for you in this industry. So CSA is awesome. I love them. I'm thankful to be a Speaker of the House is my title. I'm just glad to be there, be a part of it. But it's Rolling Staffing, we've been around for 31 years, I think this year. And I have not, just to be clear, I was not here from day one. I would have been like 10 or something like that. So just to make that clear. But that said, we do a lot in the space of skilled trades, recruiting, construction, manufacturing, but more recently, we've also kind of launched out on the search side, finance, executive, and construction management, things like that. So that's a little bit about us. I love my team. I could brag on them all day. I know we don't have time to do that, but if they're here, I just want you guys to know I love you and appreciate everything you guys do for our industry and our brand. Thanks, Brad.
I saw Mindy in the chat here, so she's definitely here, and I'm sure there are some others. He's Adrian Dominguez with Rolling Staffing. If you want to get a hold of him, you can connect on LinkedIn. You see his name on the screen, and that is his LinkedIn profile picture. So you'll make sure that you're not connecting with an imposter. Adrian, really appreciate it, buddy. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Susan, Haley, want to pull both of you back on here for a quick overview. Anything that Adrian said that caught your attention in terms of driving new business from current clients?
Absolutely. The one thing he said that I absolutely loved, and it's something that I live by, was showing your personality, and not being afraid to show your personality makes it so much easier to create those relationships, because as you've heard before, people buy from people, they don't buy from a company.
Yep.
And Adrian does a stellar job at this. I highly encourage you to connect with him on LinkedIn. He always incorporates something from his personal life and ties it around to a business lesson. And it's genius how he does it. I referred many people to follow him to show how a personal brand can really build your company brand as well.
Haley.
I think Adrian hit it spot on with like really getting to know people and deepening those relationships, even if it doesn't necessarily lead to a sale. So, you know, in my daily conversations, I'm taking a look at their current products that they have with Haley Marketing. Hey, here's a few bells and whistles that you are already paying for that you're not using today. Is there a rhyme or reason? Let me help you make the most of the things you have so that we can support you as you continue to grow.
And I got to say one more time before we get on to the next slide here. Go Bills. Alrighty.
And nothing in the chat.
I did not see anything in the chat for
Nope.
Adrian, but we will keep it moving. Adrian, as always, thank you, buddy. I appreciate you. Let's share a lesson again from Take the Stage and Dan Morey. Adrian alluded to this a little bit on his during his time with us. We need to sell on value, not based on price. And when we compete on price, we are simply competing in a race to the bottom. And friends, when we think about selling and cross-selling and driving new orders, we undoubtedly need to be competing on value. You know, if we think about our industry, we have a stereotype where we're a bit of a commodity because we present ourselves as such. And if we have the courage to have true differentiators, to compete on value, to showcase our value proposition, well, that's why people decide to work with us. You know, I was on a webinar yesterday where someone was talking about, the webinar was with Scale Funding, but we had a question come in about how do you get around price, right? If we're constantly trying to compete on price, what do you do? And you need to compete on that value. It's the value you bring to the end client. People will pay a premium if there's perceived value for what you're paying for. You know, you think about the Nike shoes that you might be wearing at $120 a pair, you can get the exact same shoe within reason at a store like Walmart, at a store like Target, at a store like Payless. You pay the premium because there's perceived value that comes with wearing the swoosh, right? Staffing services are really no different. If there's perceived value, clients will pay for your services. The challenge is when you're not showcasing that value, or worse, they don't feel the value. Susan, Haley, before we move on and get to our next guest, anything you want to share on that one?
Yeah, I'll jump in. Sorry, Susan.
No, that's okay.
I was thinking just understanding, you know, what is the value to that person you're speaking to, and understanding, you know, the ROI and what they're looking to get out of it just makes it easier to say yes. And, you know, understanding the cost of doing nothing today. And, you know, also, you know, the implementation of the solution you're looking for. How long is it going to take to see those results?
Couldn't agree more. Susan?
I couldn't have said it better myself.
All right, let's bring on our next guest. At this time, we're going to welcome Deborah Hill, Chief Information Officer from Cornerstone Staffing. Deborah, I got to find you in my chat window here. There you are. How's everything, Deborah? Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Deborah, when we think about cross-selling and we think about upselling and we think about getting deeper with our current clients, I don't know if there's anybody better than Cornerstone Staffing. And I know you work very closely with Susan, and she had a really good story about how Cornerstone basically broke out into the tech space in a very, very crowded DFW market. One, how do you have the courage to do something like that in an oversaturated market? And two, how do you pull it off?
Right. Well, we were already staffing tech jobs for our clients in the DFW and Phoenix, Arizona area, but we decided to create a division that focused specifically on the tech industry. 2023 was our first year, and we made a profit. So we were pretty excited about that. Cornerstone Staffing has a pretty strong brand in the area already. We've been around since 1991. So people are familiar with us, but we wanted to create like a complementary brand to Cornerstone Staffing that, and we call it Cornerstone Technology Talent Services, so that they recognize Cornerstone, but now they know specifically that we're helping with technology.
How do you specifically develop those relationships, right? And I know we talked relationships with Adrian as well, and it's probably going to be a common theme here because in my mind, the account management mindset is what drives sales. Now, there are other elements too, but in terms of driving repeat business from current customers, you need to win that relationship. You said you've been around since 91. You had a strong footprint in the area. What sort of work went into that to be able to establish that?
Right. Well, what we did to establish we call it TTS for short, since Technology Talent Services is a mouthful. But we started off by creating a website specifically for the technology business. And we added SEO, and all of that was through Haley Marketing, great
Sure.
partners in this venture. And then our team, our outside sales team, went about really working with their existing clients and letting them know that now we have this area that's specifically focused on technology. You know, we added flyouts to our main website, right? So cornerstone-staffing.com is the main website that everybody's familiar with and everybody goes to. And so we added flyouts when you land on our page. You know, the TTS flies out and lets everybody know with movement that there is an additional partner or additional division of Cornerstone that they may not have known about. You know, Adrian was talking a lot about social media and getting out there and letting people know. And, you know, we did the same thing. We created a LinkedIn page just for our TTS division. And then we created content for it. And, you know, it's growing very rapidly, which is, you know, good to see. And then we cross sell it on our other LinkedIn pages. I'd go on and on. There's a lot of things that we've done in order to make it successful and to let people know about the brand. It's really, for us, it's about the brand. Cornerstone Staffing already has a very strong presence, and our sales team is working with thousands of customers in the DFW area and letting those customers know, hey, we've been staffing successfully your clerical and professional jobs. Guess what? Now we can help you with technology too.
Yeah. And so there's two things that I want to touch on. One, typically when somebody partners with an organization, you're instinctively seen as that sort of vendor, that sort of partner, right? So if somebody knows that you do office clerical, it's very tough for them to now understand that you also do technology. It's very, very difficult to change that mindset. We see it at Haley. I'm sure a lot of people on today's call, you know, if you're breaking out into a new division, it's very difficult to change that mindset. You need repetition. You need to make sure you're getting that messaging in different ways because you don't know how people are going to consume that messaging. The analogy that I paint is similar to the evening news, right? Some people might watch the evening news. They might listen on their way home to talk radio. They might scroll something like Twitter and get their news from there. We're all consuming the news, but how you get it is up to you.
Right.
And Deborah, in the case of a new division, we need to make sure that that messaging is everywhere, right? We need to make sure that individuals can receive it how they want to.
Right.
What I also love is, you know, you had your sales team get incredibly involved in the process as well. And what I see from, you know, again, countless calls that I'm a part of, if the sales team isn't bought into the vision, it's very difficult to row in the same direction, right? And you knew what you wanted to do. You were going to launch this division. We were going to launch in this specific space, but we need to have total team buy-in on the sales side of ops. How hard was it to get that buy-in? Was it an easy task or was it something that just sort of worked for you and your team?
Yeah, well, for us, it was pretty easy. The
Good.
sales team had been working with the customers all along, and they're the ones saying, hey, they have these technology needs, and you know, they trust us. If we could provide them with that service, we think they would bite. And so getting the news out to them, we did an instant mail through Haley Marketing to announce that we had it, and we sent it out to all of our clients and prospects. Our sales team went out with promotional items and a flyer, a nice cardboard slick that kind of talked about what the promotional item was and took it out to all of the technology departments. So, you know, we already could get in the door with the customer because they already knew us. And then instead of walking to accounting, we walked over to the technology department and dropped off a little goodie for them as well. So it was really, we sponsor a lot of events in DFW and in Phoenix, Tent and Tempe as well. And so, you know, we're already doing those sponsorships. And so we added another logo. That was the thing that we did, was we have a consistent logo with our CS and triangle. And then it says Cornerstone, and underneath it, it says either staffing or professional placement or Technology Talent Services. So it's a very recognizable logo. And so we just changed it up a little bit with the color and then the additional name and ran with it.
What I love here in terms of cross-selling and getting deeper with those relationships, right? You already have a strong relationship with Brad on the office clerical side of operations, right? So
Mhm.
to be able to walk down the hall and hand something over to somebody else in IT becomes a little bit easier. You could never walk through the front door and just have that conversation with a new prospect, right? You get that door
Right,
closed on you quicker than anything, right?
right, right.
But back to the initial slide, we were talking about Tom Urban, making sure we have strong A to F relationships all the way up to A as a trusted advisor. Having that and being in that position allows you the opportunity to have those cross-selling opportunities. So I love that your team was already
Right.
doing that. And then it opened up that door where you're profitable in year one. I mean, how many people can say that, right?
Yeah, we're pretty
Deborah,
proud. Yeah.
anything else for us before we let you go on the what you're seeing on the front lines of this and any other tips that you might be able to give to today's listeners on how to get a little bit deeper with their current clients?
Well, like you said, people consume information in different ways, and I believe strongly that um, it's important to be seen a lot of different places.
Yeah.
We think that it's about seven touches before somebody's going to either register or apply with us or is going to give us their business.
Okay.
So, they hear us on the radio, they see a billboard, they are on Facebook and one of our ads pop up. They are on LinkedIn and it comes up, and then
Yeah.
they're, surfing the internet and one of our ads pops up. So it's not one thing that's going to make you successful. It's a combination of things because it takes multiple touches for anybody to really say, okay, let's give this cornerstone a try.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I could not agree more. And bringing consumer goods to the conversation, we're window shopping all day,
yeah.
right? Whether you want a new t-shirt, you want new headphones, whatever it might be, we're
Mhm.
window shopping all day. You're going to look at the product, you're going to think about it, you're going to talk to a friend or a family member. So Deborah, I couldn't agree more. Everyone is doing that when it comes to staffing services. Staffing is rarely a one-call close. So
Right.
we need to make sure that we are absolutely surrounding our prospects and even our current clients
Yeah.
with messaging to make sure that they know when they have a staffing need, they got to come to us instead of somebody else.
Right. And then when the salesperson walks in the door and says, "Hi, I'm from Cornerstone Staffing," they're like, "Wait a second, I've heard of
Exactly.
them.
Yep.
I've seen that somewhere. Okay, let's see what they have to say." So
Yeah.
it all works together.
Deborah, can't thank you enough for coming on this episode of Lunch with Haley and sharing your insights with us. If anybody wants to get a hold of Deborah, her name again is on the screen, just like Adrian's was, and so is her LinkedIn profile picture. So you can make sure you are connecting with her and not, like I said before, an imposter. Deborah, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Susan, Haley, let's pull you back in here to this conversation. Anything that Deborah mentioned that y'all want to break down and share as a recap?
Y'all, you've been hanging around Haley too long.
I know, right? I caught that too.
I caught myself doing it the other day also.
My buffalo is showing.
Well, Deborah had accused me of tricking her into coming on this Lunch with Haley, and I'm really glad I did because I did kind of trick her. And one of the things that we've heard now both from oh my God, Adrian and
Yep.
Deborah is you have to do all the things, I think is how Adrian put it. It's not just one thing. And I really applaud Cornerstone Staffing for the bravery of what they did because their brand, and I think Deborah underplayed it a little bit, is so strong in their market for commercial and professional. And to spend the money that they did, the investment to do a whole new branding because their strong brand actually was what was probably holding them back a little bit because their clients didn't think of them as being able to place in technology. And they did all the right things.
You know what I
And the
love
fact
about
that
that
they turned a
too?
profit year one is positive for that.
What I love about that is it's the sales team coming back and saying, listen, we should get into this kind of staffing because people keep asking for it. It's being aware and listening to what your clients are saying to understand where opportunity might come from because we don't know what opportunity is ahead of us tomorrow or the next day. But listening and saying, listen, we're catching a trend here. We should think about this. We should talk about this as an organization. I love that part. Haley, go for it.
I think Deborah is hitting it the nail on the head with creating awareness and those multiple unique touches. It's not to say we're going to get rid of those drip campaigns that you're going to use through automation. It's not going to get rid of that phone call, but it's adding a different sizzle that no one else is doing that's really going to bring that brand awareness and attention. And, you know, really strong call to action so you really see those results that you're looking for.
Couldn't agree more. All right, let's keep it moving. Give you another lesson from Take the Stage, specifically Trisha Tamkin. Trisha was on a couple episodes ago, and she offered a quote that I absolutely love. How can AI help me in insert task here? And it's become a way that I've seen AI pretty much since. And friends, I think I would be doing all of you a disservice if we didn't talk about AI at least a little bit on today's Lunch with Haley, as it is on everybody's mind. But from the sales standpoint, what I want to offer you is to think about how AI can help you in the sales process. And in doing so, I want you to think about how can AI help me in insert task here. And as you're prospecting, as you're doing your research, as you're working on your call scripts, your email scripts, as you're working on maybe it's role playing and going through the sales process and practicing and getting in those practice reps, how can AI help you in that endeavor so that on the other side of it, you come out a little bit stronger? We have more than enough resources on AI to get into the tactical side of it, but I did want to offer just that one small tip. Again, how can AI help me in this task? Susan, Haley, anything?
I think you should ask the AI how it can help you. I think.
Yeah. So there's a great website called There's an AI for that. And it does exactly that. It's basically a search engine of AI tools. So if you have a need, you basically type in your need and it'll spit out the tool that works perfectly for you. But I agree. Asking the AI how to be AI is
Yeah.
very, very, very meta, right?
Job descriptions, you know, you got to do a bio, whatever it is, you just plug it in and it will give you the answer.
Yep. Susan.
Completely agree. From an AI standpoint, I had kind of a funny story. I was on vacation and I was with someone in the staffing industry. She got an order for something that she had never placed before and was struggling with the job description. And we were sitting out on our patio and I punched in, asked her some stuff about the job, and she was flabbergasted that it spit out this near perfect job description within, seconds. And that's, just scratching the surface of what AI can do for our industry.
Yeah, I could talk AI for hours. It's definitely something that I'm passionate about lately, but I will save that for another episode of Lunch with Haley. And if our marketing team is listening, I would love to be a part of that one. All right, let's bring on our last guest here. He is a Cleveland Guardians fan who are absolutely going to beat up on my White Sox this year, and I got to make sure he knows that. We're going to bring on Tim Blake, owner of Vector Technical Inc. Tim, how's everything going, bud? Might have you muted, Tim. I can unmute you from my computer, I believe. And if not, we can keep rolling anyways. Susan, Haley, you're still there, right? It's not me. There's
Still
Tim.
here.
You can hear me now, right?
I got you, Tim. How's everything?
Great.
Good. Tim, as owner of Vector Technical, we've had the opportunity to work together now. I think you might have been one of the first clients that I actually started working with when I joined Haley. So I've known you for quite some time now. You continue to grow and develop and really redevelop across the Ohio area. You know, when we think about Vector Technical, what are you doing specifically to strengthen client relationships to really hold that footprint in the area?
Well, I think first of all, we've made ourselves strong advocates for manufacturers.
Okay.
In other words, we do everything we can to help push their cause. One of the things that I think has been a key difference maker is we got involved with a group called AWT. It's a group of about 200 plus manufacturers here in Northeast Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
And they have a lot of grant funding where they provide training, upskilling, like OSHA 10, blueprint reading, entry to manufacturing. And we offered our services in all their programs on the interviewing and interview tips, interview skills, resume writing, you know, those, how to search for jobs. So we do a piece, every program that they do, and they do at least 2 a month. We have at least one day where we're involved.
How'd you get involved
Because
in
of
that?
I'm
Please.
sorry?
I
Go
said, how'd you
ahead.
get involved in something like that?
Well, you know, actually, my first landlord 30 years ago started this thing
Okay.
about 10 years ago.
Okay.
But you know, I heard about it. I reached out to him, and we weren't allowed to get involved because we weren't a manufacturer. So
Sure.
I found different ways to kind of help out, and eventually they offered us a seat at the table. And our first move into this thing is every year we put on a thing called Think Manufacturing Expo. It's there's about 12 area high schools that get involved. This past October, we had 48 manufacturers and almost 600 kids attend. And they get a chance to learn about manufacturing, what great careers there are. We actually, this year, we did something different. We had a panel about 5 young people. Every one of them were in the workforce and out of high school only like anywhere from 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
And the kids were able to ask them questions about what it's like.
Yeah.
And, you know, the big thing that, you know, we've been telling our kids for forever that they have to go to college. And obviously college isn't for everybody, and the expense is ridiculous.
Sure.
But a lot of families or young people, they don't know about careers in manufacturing, how lucrative they are, and how amazing they can be. And, you know, the fact that a lot of these facilities are packed with technology, and they're clean, and a lot young people love technology, and they gravitate to it. So these are, you know, just exposing them to these kind of opportunities. Because of that, you know, we've also developed relationships with several of our local vocational schools, tech schools, and then vocational programs in the high schools. So it's snowballed a bunch. And
Yeah.
one of the biggest things I think it's done for us is we have credibility. And I think the companies realize that, you know, we got skin in the game too. So when I go in, you know, a lot of our new business actually is coming from some of these activities where we're meeting them. We were just this past week, we're at Cuyahoga Valley Joint Vocational School, the only agency that was invited because we do the, you know, interview prep and mock interviews with the students. We picked up 3 new clients
Beautiful.
because of that exposure. And
Yeah.
you know, they were like, you guys, oh yeah, we heard about you. And I've actually had the good fortune because of some of these things to be interviewed a couple of times. You know, I'm not great on TV, but I don't have a face. I have a face for radio. But anyways,
Yeah.
you know, it just gave us more exposure, and I think that makes a big difference. The other thing that I think really has helped us is, you know, what's hit post-COVID and COVID. There was such a feeding frenzy for candidates that companies were hiring just about anybody. They were desperate, but they realized, here we are a few years down the road, that was a terrible mistake. You know, we're burning out our managers, our trainers. You know, the turnover is just not sustainable. So they become much more critical on their requirements. The other thing is, I started seeing in 23, boy, selling is getting tough. So I wanted to look inside and say, okay, we're doing all these things. We got this great story, but how do we communicate it? How do we put it out there? Maybe in a marketing piece. I actually collaborated with Jeff Stantz. I shot some ideas at him, and I said, we need to look. I need companies to look beyond the bill rate, because too much of this business, you mentioned it more than once, that it's a commodity. If you walk in there and the only thing you have to offer is a bill rate, then guess what? You're a commodity. And that's not who we are. So we put together like a checklist, actually, beyond the bill rate. Haley did it. It's a beautiful piece. We did a drip campaign with it. You know, just talking about look at all these things that we're doing. Because of these partnerships, I can offer your people, if you want to upskill them, I can get them free OSHA 10. I can get them blueprint reading. You know, no cost to you, because we're involved in some of these government programs. And Those are the things that differentiate us, and those are the things I want them to think about. Forget it. It's not just a bill raise. This is what we're
Yeah.
dealing with. We use ADP. ADP
Okay.
is one of the largest payroll companies in the world. They have
Yep.
more payroll daily than anybody. One of the great tools that they have is we can run a market study, a pay study in any place in Northeast Ohio. You put the position title in, it'll spit out the pay rates. So what we did at the end of the other thing we did at the end of Q4 is we circled back with all of our clients, said, hey, we'd love to come in and talk to you,
Love it.
talk about some of the market changes and what's going on in the industry, what we're hearing, and let's talk about your 24 staffing plan. And by the way, I'd like to bring a couple of the recruiters that work on your account that could get a plant tour. And they're like,
Yep.
Sure, we'd love it. Bring them in.
Yeah.
Every single one of those moves turned into walking out with orders, or within the first couple of weeks of Q1 24, we've gotten orders.
Love
We've
it.
gotten out of the gate pretty strong. I also, like I said, I did a drip campaign with that marketing piece, and that's been pretty effective in getting
Love
and
it.
pushing business our way.
Love it. So what I'm hearing is, one, being human, showing up, having conversations, getting to know people, and getting into facilities and talking to them and having general conversations with them. It's competing on value, not competing on price. And Tim,
Yes.
I don't understand, and maybe you could enlighten me here. Why do we try to compete on price, right? And I guess more importantly, why are clients trying to beat us up on price? You know, you don't go to a steakhouse and say, listen, I'm only going to give you 27 for this plate. I know you got it listed here at 32. I'm only going to give you 27. We allow ourselves to get beat up on price because we allow ourselves to get beat up on price. If we come in and we have value and we can
Right.
prove that value through, sir, just like you just said, right? Testimonials, backing it up, showing the case study, showing the data, showing what works well. Well, then that 32, whatever number, right, is a no-brainer.
Well, I think one of the things, and you're so, and I won't compete on, I won't do it. And
Good.
Usually my retort to the bill rate issue is, why am I sitting here?
Yeah.
You're telling me that they're, so and so's at 1.4. Why am I 1.55? Because of the value, but I'm sitting here for a reason. It's because they're
Right.
not performing. So who
Right.
cares how cheap they are? But because I'm here for a reason. So
Correct.
let's just put that aside right away.
Yeah.
So I, usually not always, but oftentimes it at least disarms that piece of the conversation. But then it's my job to convince them that the value that we bring is worth it.
Yeah.
And usually it doesn't always fly, because if it has to go to purchasing or somebody in accounting and they're the ultimate decision maker purely based on
Sure.
rate, then we don't want them anyways, because they don't value what we do. And I think when we go in and we undervalue ourselves, shame on us. We should never do that, because what we're doing is so important. We're providing one of the most important thing that happens in their business is their human capital that walks through the door. I also realize it's one of the biggest things on their P&L.
Right.
But that's why it's so important to get it right. And
Right.
Discounted fees is discounted activity. It's going to be, you're not going to be a priority. And I tell them that's why you're not getting people, because you're not a priority, because your bill rate's too low.
Yep.
There's no profit in you. I mean, in the world of business, it has to be fair for everybody.
Right. Tim, you might have gave us the sound clip there, thinking about providing value, thinking about taking it a step further, getting out of price, getting back to, listen, there's a lot that we need to be doing, right? You alluded to, when you started talking, everything that Vector is doing to drive orders, right? And one thing that I wanted to talk about is you're getting on other people's stages. It's a phrase that we use here at Haley quite a bit. How can we get on other people's stages to get Haley marketing in front of new potential prospects, right? But you're doing that with Vector, right? You're getting in with new associations, new groups, that because of, you said, an old landlord 30 years ago,
Right.
opened up a huge door for Vector Technical that no one probably saw coming. But you're always listening. You're always thinking, what's next? Where could I find that next opportunity? And that's what makes you successful year after year.
And I think, you know, we have to be creative and we have
Yeah.
to think out of the box. And, you know, if you're gonna tell everybody that you're different, you better have a solid argument.
Yeah,
Be different.
I couldn't agree more. And I know I mentioned Tom Erb at the beginning of today's conversation. You know, we had talked about differentiators on that episode of the show, or I'm sorry, on that episode of Take the Stage. And we had said that one of the most common differentiators is, oh, well, we're locally owned. And Tom had brought the data to the conversation, which I love about him. You know, he said that 90% of the industry is less than 10 million in revenue, meaning 90% of the industry is also locally owned. So when you lead with a differentiator like, oh, well, we're a local, you know, staffing agency in Buffalo, New York, just about everybody else that is calling on your clients and your prospects in Buffalo, New York, is saying the same thing because they're all also locally owned. That's not a differentiator. Right. So to Tim's point, if you're going to lead with something, your uniques or what makes you different, it got to be different, and they have to add value to the client and to that prospect.
Yep, absolutely.
Tim, can't thank you enough for coming on Lunch with Haley.
Thanks.
It's always great
My
chatting
pleasure.
with you.
Absolutely.
Hopefully my White Sox pull a couple on your Guardians. I don't know, but we'll see what happens, right?
Yeah, you got it. Good luck.
All right, you take care. Susan, Haley, we'll pull you back in here for any key takeaways from our time with Tim Blake from Vector Technical.
Yeah, I think that Tim, you know, everybody's talking about like the industry expertise and having what niche are you, what differences are you bringing to the market, and really highlighting that. And you knew a great way you can do that. And what we do highlight here, a lot of Haley marketing is white papers, webinars, Brad, your podcast. Like, how are you getting that information and showing that value that you're adding to the market?
Susan.
One thing that I noticed, and it was because it was very obvious, is all three of our guest panelists mentioned how active they were in their community and the doors that opened them up for. I know Tim, when he, you know, volunteered his staff to do the interviews, the mock interviews at the school, his intention was not a sales intention. It was, he cares about his industry and, you know, advocates for it. So I absolutely love that story. I can also completely see Tim sitting in front of a prospect and saying, "Why am I sitting here?" Which I absolutely loved, and it's a great argument. You wouldn't be spending your time with me if everything was perfect.
Yeah. I had a lot of fun on this one. I hope the two of you did as well. I can't thank Adrian and Deborah and Tim enough for coming on this episode of Lunch with Haley. Friends, before we let you go, we got to share a couple additional resources from Haley Marketing for you. The first, make sure you subscribe to Smart Ideas, weekly motivation for the staffing industry. If you go to haleymarketing.com/smart ideas, you can sign up for that. With Smart Ideas, you're going to get a weekly email newsletter that we've been delivering on Saturday mornings, where we're going to send one actionable takeaway that you can deploy the following week that will help you with your marketing as it relates specifically for the staffing and recruiting industry. We call it Smart Ideas because, heck, it's a really good smart idea. I know it's my favorite read on the weekend. I have yet to miss one. They are very, very good. You'll go to haleymarketing.com/smart ideas, again, to get that weekly motivation for the staffing industry in the form of marketing best practices that you can deploy the following week. Of course, I've mentioned it multiple times on today's Lunch with Haley. If you're not subscribed to the Secrets of Staffing Success, I would encourage you to do so. We have two great shows, Insights and Take the Stage. Insights, myself and our Director of Recruitment Marketing, Matt Lozar, break down what's working in digital and recruitment marketing, specifically for the staffing industry. And on Take the Stage, I have the opportunity to chat with some of the best content creators and thought leaders throughout staffing to bring conference caliber talks to podcast form. Had some really great conversations in Q1, and I'm incredibly fired up for Q2. You get both those shows by subscribing to Secrets of Staffing Success on your preferred podcast player. And Susan, you got something for us, so go ahead.
I have something very fun. So QR code, click on it. We, with our recruiters website division, are doing the March Madness and bracket contest. So the bracket opens up on Sunday, and prizes from our sponsors. Let me see. I thought I would be able to do this for memory. Adams, Evans and Ross, PC Recruiter, and MPA Worldwide. It's free to play and have fun with it.
I'm always looking for another bracket. Honestly,
especially a free one.
Oh my God. I'm so bad at it, but I love to do it. I'll put together probably 5 or 6. My bracket will be busted so early in the tournament. but they are fun. Make sure, I know there's a website URL here, recruiterswebsites.com/bracket, or you got your smartphone pointed at your desktop right now. That'll take you right to that page as well. For Haley, Susan, Tim, Adrian, and Deborah, can't thank y'all enough for sticking around and watching this episode of Lunch with Haley. Hey, before you leave, make sure when you close out, you take a second to fill out that survey form. We'd love to know what you thought of this afternoon's Lunch with Haley. If you like the format, we'd love to do more of it. So feel free to let our marketing team know what you liked and what you didn't like. We can take that feedback too. But when you close out a Zoom, you're going to get a nice feedback form. We'd love that feedback. We welcome that feedback. And we will see you on April's Lunch with Haley. Take care.